All right, so we're diving deep today. We've got this guide, right, from the NSW Food Authority, all about small egg farms. And we're going to try and unpack it, figure out what it really takes to run one of these things. Legally, safely, the whole 9 yards.
And what's fascinating here is that this guide really zeroes in on a very specific type of farm.
Right.
We're not talking about like the big commercial operations.
Right.
This is for folks selling, get this, less than 240 eggs per week. Basically just 20 dozen.
Wow, that is small. Way smaller than I pictured. It really goes to show, how these regulations are so tailored to the scale of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Now, you'd think with such a small operation, licenses would be a no-brainer. Like, oh, it's just a few chickens, no big deal. But turns out that's not how it works in New South Wales, at least not for these small farms.
You got it. Instead of a formal licensing system, they've got this thing called a notification system.
Oh, interesting.
So you still got to let the food authority know you're out there doing your thing and give them the rundown of your setup and all that, but you're not going to be issued an actual license.
Huh. So it's like you're on the list, but you didn't win the trophy.
Yeah, something like that.
Still got to play by the rules, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of rules, what about, like, qualifications? Does someone need a degree in chicken science to run one of these farms?
While a formal degree isn't strictly required, understanding food safety, that's non-negotiable.
Makes sense to me.
The guide really stresses this. They point you to the Food Standards Code and those Safe Food Australia guidelines. Essential reading, they say. Got to know how to handle those eggs right, prevent any contamination, keep everyone safe.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the cause of some big food poisoning outbreak.
Exactly.
Now, when it comes to safety, the guide also goes into a lot of detail about the facilities and hygiene stuff, like easy-to-clean surfaces, proper waste disposal, designated hand-washing stations, all that jazz.
It's all standard practice in the food industry, and it's there for a reason. Think about it, eggshells. They're porous. That means bacteria could, potentially sneak in. So these hygiene practices, they really help minimize that risk.
So it's all connected, from the chicken to the plate. Got to be thinking about safety at every step. Now, this next bit, this caught my eye. The NSW Egg Monitoring Diary. They say it's mandatory for these small farms. And it's all about salmonella.
That's right. This diary, it's not just some bureaucratic hoop to jump through.
Really?
It's a crucial tool, actually, for monitoring the health of your flock, making sure those chickens are salmonella-free, because that's, a major culprit when it comes to food poisoning. It's a great example of how they weave these biosecurity measures right into the regulations, all to protect public health.
So you're not just filling out paperwork for the sake of it.
Right.
You're actually playing a part in keeping your birds and your customers safe. And speaking of records, the guide really harps on about detailed documentation for every little thing, especially if there's ever a recall situation.
Imagine, right, there's a salmonella outbreak, and it's traced back to small egg farms. If you've got meticulous records, you can trace your eggs back to their source, like pinpoint the problem, maybe even prevent the whole thing from spiraling out of control.
Like you become an egg detective.
In a way, yeah.
And speaking of tracing things back to their source, the guide also mentions how important stock feed safety is.
Absolutely. What those chickens eat has a direct impact on the safety of the eggs they lay. They're really emphasizing using approved feed products, preventing contamination, making sure it's stored properly. The whole point is that everything that goes into producing those eggs has got to be safe for people to eat.
Yeah, like a chain of safety. Every link's got to be strong. Now, what about the labeling and stamping stuff? I noticed they mentioned that each egg actually needs a unique stamp.
This is one of the more interesting parts of the whole egg regulation thing, in my opinion.
Really?
Each farm gets
very welcoming, enthusiastic.
Yeah.
They clearly love quails, and their passion is contagious.
You're right.
It's like they're inviting you into their world.
Yeah.
Their community, rather than just lecturing at you.
Exactly.
And then to wrap up this intro, they give this really heartfelt thank you to the listeners, emphasizing how important that community support is.
Mm-hmm.
And it reinforces that idea of a two-way street.
Yeah.
The podcast provides value, but it's the listener engagement that helps it thrive.
Yeah.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
It's more than just a thank you, though.
Mm-hmm.
It sets the tone for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful message.
Chaos theory could explain those wild population swings we see in nature.
Okay.
I mean, we were just talking about how quail populations can just boom and bust seemingly at random.
Right.
So what if there's some kind of underlying order to that chaos?
Okay, so you're saying those seemingly random fluctuations might actually be part of a larger predictable pattern.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Yeah. It's definitely a mind bender. So let's take it back to the 1970s with this guy, Robert May.
Okay.
He was studying population growth models. These are basically mathematical equations that try to predict how populations will change over time.
Right.
And May found that even a really simple model with just a few parameters could generate all sorts of different outcomes depending on the growth rate.
So you mean like a small tweak to the growth rate could make the model go from stable and predictable to completely chaotic?
Exactly. And that was a groundbreaking discovery because it showed that even these simple systems can exhibit this incredibly complex behavior.
Wow.
And guess what?
What?
Quail, with their high reproductive potential and their sensitivity to environmental changes, they fit the bill for potential chaotic dynamics.
Now you've really got my attention.
Oh.
So does the paper actually connect this chaos theory to real-world quail populations?
It does.
Okay.
The author highlights several research studies that actually explore this very question. One study was looking at a computer model. Ooh, what's that?
With all the crazy weather we're seeing these days, what can we do to make sure quail have the kind of habitats they need to not just survive, but really do well?
That is a good question, and one we should definitely explore more.
I agree.
So we know we need to create these resilient habitats for quail, especially with all the unpredictable weather. But what does that actually look like? Where do we even start?
It helps to think about the things we talked about before, like nesting cover, brood rearing cover, winter cover, and food plots.
The basics.
Yeah. By managing each of those carefully, we can create a landscape that's more adaptable and resilient for quail.
Okay, so a multi-pronged approach.
Right.
Let's start with nesting cover. What can we do to make sure quail have good places to nest even when the weather's acting up?
One of the best strategies is to focus on having lots of different kinds of native grasses and wildflowers.
Variety is the spice of life.
Exactly. You see, different plants can handle different things, like drought, flooding, and temperature changes.
Right.
So by having a diverse plant community, you're basically spreading the risk.
So even if one type of plant struggles one year, others will probably do well.
Exactly. And there will always be some good nesting cover available.
It's like a diversified investment portfolio, but for quail habitat.
That's a good way to put it. And this diversity also helps other creatures like pollinators and insects.
Right, which we know are super important for those growing chicks.
Exactly. So it's a win-win for the whole ecosystem.
Okay. What about brood rearing cover? What makes a good habitat for that, and how do creative solutions to environmental challenges?
And it makes you wonder what other possibilities are out there. You know, we've been focusing on quail litter.
Right.
But could this process be scaled up to handle the massive amounts of waste produced by, larger animals, like cattle, for instance?
That's a really interesting question and something that I think deserves further exploration. If this process proves effective on a larger scale, it could have a major impact on the way we manage animal waste and produce fertilizer.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about, turning a potential environmental problem into a valuable resource.
Yeah, it's a great example of circular economy thinking. Instead of treating animal waste as something to just get rid of, we're looking at it as a valuable input and potentially closing a loop on this whole system.
Well, when we talk about synthetic fertilizers,
Yeah.
I mean, those come with their own environmental baggage.
Absolutely.
So using a fertilizer derived from animal waste could potentially have a much lighter footprint.
Right. Their production is energy intensive. They contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. And overuse can lead to soil degradation over time.
So there are a lot of potential benefits to exploring these more natural alternatives.
Yeah, I think so. And this research with the quail litter is a really promising step in that direction.
So what other potential benefits do you see this having for agriculture and the environment as a whole?
Well, for one thing, it could help improve soil health. Organic fertilizers like this one introduce beneficial microorganisms into the soil.
Okay.
And that can really enhance its structure, its water retention, and its nutrient availability.
So it's almost like we're feeding the soil with a more natural, balanced diet rather than just giving it a quick fix with synthetic fertilizers.
Exactly. And it could also have economic benefits for farmers.
How so?
Well, if they can produce their own fertilizer from readily available animal waste, it could significantly reduce their input costs.
So it's a win-win situation. Farmers save money, environment benefits, and we create a more sustainable and resilient food system.
Precisely.
I love that. It's really a story of turning what we often consider a waste product into a valuable asset.
Yeah, it really highlights the potential of innovation and resourcefulness in agriculture.
It really makes you rethink your assumptions about what constitutes waste, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all about perspective.
But I'm also thinking about the challenges. Producing fertilizer pellets from quail litter is one thing, but imagine trying to do this with the waste from larger animals on a massive scale.
Oh, yeah.
That must present a whole other set of hurdles.
Absolutely. Scaling up any new technology always comes with challenges.
Right.
And in this case, we'd need to figure out the logistics of collecting, transporting, and processing enormous amounts of animal waste.
I can only imagine the sheer volume of material we'd be talking about. And then there's the issue of quality control. We talked about the importance of temperature control during the pelleting process.
Right.
How do we ensure that level of precision when we're dealing with such large quantities of material?
Those are all valid points, and I think they highlight the need for further research and development. We need to explore how this process works with waste from different animals, test its effectiveness on various crops and soil types, and really refine the technology to optimize efficiency and quality.
So it sounds like there's a lot more work to be done before we see this becoming a mainstream solution.
Definitely.
Hmm.
But I think the potential is there, and this research with the quail litter provides a really solid foundation to build on.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What are the next steps in turning this promising research into a real-world solution?
Well, as I mentioned, I think further research is crucial.
Okay.
We need to explore different types of animal waste, different crops, different soil types,
Right.
and we need to continue to refine the pelleting technology to make it as efficient and effective as possible.
And ultimately, the goal is to create a more sustainable and resilient agricultural system, right?
That's right. One that minimizes waste, reduces our reliance on synthetic fertilizers, and produces healthy food for a growing population.
It's a pretty ambitious goal,
It is.
but it's an important one. And this research gives us a glimpse of what might be possible.
I agree. It's a reminder that even something as seemingly insignificant as quail droppings can hold the key to a more sustainable future.
I love that. And it speaks to the power of scientific curiosity and innovation.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into the world of quail droppings and fertilizer innovation.
It has.
And it really leaves us with a lot to think about. What if we could truly turn waste into wealth? Not just financially, but for the environment and our food system as well.
That's the big question, and I think this research gives us hope that the answer might be closer than we think.
It's inspiring to think about all the possibilities. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, we want to turn it over to you, our listeners.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this research? Do you see its potential for transforming agriculture?
What are your thoughts on creating a more sustainable future? We'd love to hear your perspective. So, as we were talking about the potential of scaling this up to, larger animals, it just makes me think about, all of the waste that's produced by the cattle industry.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be enormous amounts.
Oh, yeah. It's massive.
So if we could apply this same pelleting process to cattle manure, for instance, I mean, could that be a game changer?
I think it could be. Huge potential there.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing to think about, mountains of manure
Yeah.
being turned into, this valuable fertilizer.
It's a perfect example of what we call circular economy thinking.
Right.
Instead of treating animal waste as a problem to be disposed of, we're looking at it as a valuable input.
Yeah, we're closing the loop.
Exactly.
And speaking of closing the loop,
yeah.
when we talk about synthetic fertilizers,
Right.
I mean, those have their own environmental downsides.
Absolutely. They require a lot of energy to produce. They contribute to greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
And overuse can actually degrade the soil over time.
So there are a lot of reasons to be looking for more sustainable alternatives.
Yeah, definitely.
And this pelleted animal waste fertilizer could be a really promising option.
I think so. So, we talked about some of the benefits already.